You must be wondering, do I love being a CRNA or do I just like it? Well, in this video, I'll go into detail why I love being a CRNA and why maybe you might love being a CRNA too. So keep watching. My name is Christine and welcome to a new video. If this is your first time here and you want to become a CRNA or grow your CRNA career, start now by subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss a thing. In this video, we're going to discuss why I love being a CRNA. I don't just like being a CRNA. I love being a CRNA. And I think that if you hear what my experience is of being a CRNA or maybe why I love being a CRNA, maybe that might help you decide if you want to take steps to become a CRNA now, okay? So, first step. I love being a CRNA because I love pain management. I remember when I was in the ICU and of course I had a very sick patient, I was always interested in pain management. I've always wanted to provide safe and effective holistic care to my patients. I still remember when I worked night shift and when I used to have my patients, of course they were asleep, and I used to give them a bed bath and I used to massage. I used to be all into making sure my patients were comfortable. And I feel like even changing their bed sheets, even freshening them up, and when they are transitioning to becoming more aware and awake, and also helping them with the transition from being totally asleep, very sick, to coming out of it and becoming healthier and better. I used to be so interested in making sure my patients were comfortable and not in pain. Now, in my mind, I also loved critical care. I loved always being and thinking fast, thinking at the top of my feet. I always loved learning and growing, and I always loved pathophysiology. So that also mirrored what I felt today as being a CRNA. Yes, it is different than being an ICU nurse, but however, being an ICU nurse has built a foundation that allowed me to be successful as a CRNA and really truly keyed into what my life will be as a CRNA. Also, I still remember my first transition into being a CRNA student and going into clinical, learning about epidurals and peripheral nerve blocks. Those type of things are great ways of pain management in the sense that you're not requiring patients to have a lot of opioids, because nowadays there's something called an opioid epidemic and some people are addicted to these medications. And I love learning other strategies for pain management where I can block certain nerve roots and to allow that patient to not be in pain. It may not be a perfect pain management forever, but it's nice to see it being used for surgeries, for labor, and more. Another thing I like about being a CRNA is that I love being autonomous. I love being independent. Yes, in my institution, I work with anesthesiologists, and I love working with anesthesiologists as well as working with all the CRNAs. But I love being independent in the sense that you develop these relationships with people you work with and you get to try new things and you basically do everything yourself, because when you are a CRNA, you're by yourself. You're in an operating room by yourself. It's you managing that patient. You have to know that patient's head to toe, in and out, their history, everything about them. And then you're taking over and making sure they have a good anesthetic experience. So at the same time, when you're in the operating room, for example, there's a drape and you're in the back, and sometimes people say, oh, CRNAs, oh, they're the ones that sit down and they have a book and they're reading. No, definitely not. CRNAs are very vigilant. You may have a situation where maybe you have a not so sick patient, a healthy patient, and you're able to provide a nice smooth anesthetic, but there are times where it could be very rocky and you're constantly titrating medications, titrating your anesthetics, changing around things to maximize on making sure your patient's safe, and you're applying best practices to make sure your patient has a great anesthetic experience. So you'll have great days, you may have bad days, but you learn from the bad and you just love the good. And I love that with being a CRNA, I'm constantly growing. It's never the same. You're always learning new things, growing about new things. I mean, you may have one patient with the same comorbidities, for example, but they react differently to the anesthetic because everyone's different. I mean, humans and our bodies and how it works is magical. And you may say, magical? What does that mean? I'm telling you, it is magical. And when you realize that being in CRNA, like you see this patient, you're keeping them alive during such an interesting time in their lives, you know, you meet a person within 5 minutes and you're going to be taking over for them. And your ability to give them a safe, effective anesthetic, they're just trusting you. And you have to know to yourself and be confident, which I love too. You develop a lot of confidence in when you become a CRNA and providing anesthetics. Another great thing is I feel like CRNAs in general are a very close-knit group. I remember being an ICU nurse, and I remember when I transitioned in becoming a ICU nurse, and it was like nurses eat their young, and I felt like that a lot of that happened to me when I was first becoming a nurse. And yes, it was a good and bad experience, but it actually got me really strong and allowed me to be really strong in my critical thinking. Now, being a CRNA, I feel like I can call anyone and actually talk with them about their anesthetic and see how their art of anesthesia is from day to day. You're always going to learn new things. It's never changing. And that's what the one thing I love about it. And you can do so many different things as a CRNA. You can work in an ambulatory care facility. You can work in a hospital. You can work in a trauma institution, maybe a community center. You can work in a pain management clinic. You can just work straight OB, where you're just doing labor epidurals and C-sections. You can work in a facility where you're putting blocks in. And there's so many areas you can work. So much diversity that you can never be bored. If you don't like something, you can switch to something else. Maybe you say to yourself, you know what? I've worked for example, in GI for a long time, and I've done a lot of endoscopic procedures. Now I'm thinking to myself, you know what, I want to go into cardiac surgery. It might be a very tough transition for you, but you can do that. You can definitely change and do many different things. I mean, I see CRNAs, we do cardiac surgery. We could put central lines in, put arterial lines in. Like I told you, peripheral nerve blocks, epidurals. I mean, you put these patients to sleep. You learn all different types of airway management techniques, which is great, and it allows you to be a very strong anesthesia provider. As well as if you have an area that you don't want to do all those things, you want to be more low-key, you can do that too. You can also travel. Now, the traveling area in nurse anesthesia is expanding. It has blown up for 2019. Tons of jobs across the country. You can do a 1-week contract, you could do a 3-month contract, you could do 6 months. I mean, there's tons of jobs. You can constantly bounce around within a specific locum company, or as well as try different places and different companies and really maximize on becoming a CRNA and working well with other institutions. Another thing I love about being CRNA, I feel there's so much flexibility in our shift. You can work an 8-hour shift, a 10-hour shift, a 12-hour shift, or you can work a night shift. You can work 16-hour shifts, 24-hour shifts. It's constantly different types of shifts you want to work. For me, I enjoy doing my 8-hour shifts, doing my call, which is maybe once or twice a week, maybe a call weekend. But I like having that type of shift. But that might not be for you. You may want to say to yourself, you know, I was an ICU nurse and I loved working night shift. You can do that. There's tons of jobs, tons of opportunities for you to grow as a CRNA. And even if you're saying to yourself, you know what, I want to go back to school, I want to get a specific certification in a specific area, you can do so as well, which is there's always opportunities to grow in anesthesia. And let me tell you, I love it and I enjoy it. And I feel it's important for you to think about shadowing a CRNA. See what they do day to day. Because you may say to yourself, I want to become a CRNA, but you really haven't seen what they do. All you're thinking about, oh, I want to make all that money. Money is not always going to solve your problems. You may spend all this time and energy into being something that you're not, and that is not natural to you. So I definitely recommend, you don't want to waste your time. Definitely shadow a CRNA now and get that experience to see if this is really for you, okay? Click link above. I have a video on how you can shadow a CRNA now, okay? And if you want to learn more about CRNAs and the career of becoming a CRNA, definitely click one of these videos over here, especially this one over here about a playlist, and I'll see you in the next video.